Hey everyone, welcome back to Topher Drives, where the past couple of days I have been daily driving the new 2024 Lotus Emira First Edition V6 manual. And well, to be honest with you guys, I had no idea what to expect going into this because I haven't ever spent any real time with a Lotus, and this is their newest car, the Emira, which I think looks fantastic. It looks like a baby supercar. I think they've nailed it with the styling. And well, in typical Lotus fashion, it's powered by a 3.5 liter supercharged V6. Now, this is the same basic 3.5 liter that you get in a Toyota Camry, but they've added an Edelbrock supercharger that bumps the power up to 400 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque. You can get this V6 configuration with either a 6-speed automatic or, like we have in our car, a 6-speed manual. Of course, this is rear-wheel drive, and it costs about $100,000. So it's pretty typical Lotus stuff, but they've really stepped it up with this new Emira, and you'll see that mostly demonstrated in the interior. Traditionally, Lotuses have kind of just been bits of scaffolding with leather pressed into places in the interior, but this one is actually very nice, and it almost reminds me of like a JLR product, a Jaguar Land Rover. So striking from the outside, even in this stealth gray spec with the tan interior. I think it's very classy. The silver wheels, it all just really comes together very nicely. And when you see this car going down the street, you don't think that's only a $100,000 car. It kind of looks like a $200,000 or a $300,000 car to the untrained eye. So we're going to talk about what this thing has been like to live with, and the Topher called me like 30 minutes ago and wants to swap back our cars for the week, so I'll be back in the GR Corolla Maritzo. Anyways, here's our key. Let's walk you around this really quick. We'll take it for a short drive, and that'll be it for us today. We didn't have as much time as we normally have with our cars with this Lotus, as Lotus is still kind of, switching their image, and they're trying out the whole press car game, so we just had to work with what we've got. But here is your trunk space. You're not gonna fit a ton back here. Maybe a super modest golf bag and like one singular suitcase, or maybe two small suitcases. And there is our 3.5 liter supercharged V6. And you can see the throttle body. And what's cool about that is you can actually see it in the rear view mirror when you're blipping the throttle. It's super cool. Additionally, come around to the passenger side. For one, we got our first edition badge right there. Oh, and we are playing some Mansions 2 inside. Okay. Additionally, you can see our shift linkage down here below our manual shifter. Automatic cars get an additional little storage cubby down where this goes, but the manual car gets the exposed shift linkage. So that is super cool. We also have a KEF sound system in this car, which is pretty decent. If you go over to the video on the Topher channel, I'm sure he will do a nice sound system demo for you guys. We've got these crazy vents here on the front of the car. This thing just looks wild. I love it so much. And I love that it's a little understated here in this gray with silver wheel spec. Got our vents here into our intake. Somebody squealing tires in the church van. Good morning, everyone. All right, let's start this thing up. I don't know if it'll let me put it in sport. No, it won't let me change drive modes while it's not running, but we'll let you guys hear the startup. So to start this, we have to lift this little door like we do in a Lamborghini. The problem is it doesn't stay up, so you have to use 2 fingers to start the car. I've been pushing it up with my index finger and hitting it with my thumb, or I've been using my pinky and just going right through the little hatch. So we have 3 drive modes. 2 are sport and track. Sport mode and track mode open the valve on the exhaust. You can hear that supercharged V6. Our intake is right here, so when you rev it from the driver's side, it's pretty loud. Also, I hope you can see this from here. Watch this throttle body. Super cool. Lots of cool little driver-centric little Easter eggs in this car, and I really do love that with the exposed shift linkage, the visible throttle body, and there's another one too on the key. Can you get this out? On the side of the key, it says "for the drivers." I just think that that's really neat, and the key overall is slippery with my freezing dry hands, but it's pretty cool. So What do we get inside the Emira? Well, it's packaged nicely. It's a pretty small interior, but when you have a passenger in here, it's not too cramped. And the overall build quality of everything in this cabin is much nicer than I expected it to be, because you don't really think of Lotus as a luxury brand. You think of them as a performance driving brand. So when I got in here and I saw this nice reactive screen with wireless Apple CarPlay, and also that everything is wrapped in leather. I mean, from the top of the door panels to the entire top of the dash, the middle of the dash, the glove box door, everything is very, very nice. And I really appreciate that they've kind of stepped this car up, because it did end up being a little bit more expensive than they had initially estimated. The Emiras start at just under 100 grand. They're about 99.9, and they don't really let you pick too many price adding options. A lot of the options you pick are just freebies, like color of the exterior, color of the interior, wheels, brake calipers. The only options that really add any expense are an Alcantara wrapped steering wheel, a black roof, and like a tracker or something. There's like a few little oddball options that you can get that will up the price. Oh, and plus the automatic gearbox adds some money as well. But it's a pretty simple layout. We do still have a physical climate control panel down here, but we also have a backup in the infotainment if you want to see it on a larger scale, which I don't mind. We have a volume knob, which is fantastic. Our drive mode selector is in a nice spot, nice and accessible. We've got two cup holders right here, which of course do get in your way if you have a manual car, but if you have an automatic, those will be just fine. I've been driving this around with my girlfriend's giant Stanley here, and I have to kind of like drive like this and maneuver my arm around that massive gallon water bottle. Our speaker grills for the KEF sound system look awesome. And like I said earlier, I just get a really big JLR vibe in this car. I don't know what it is. It might be the way it smells, the way everything just kind of feels. The materials are very soft. And it makes sense because this is a British car, and I wouldn't be shocked to find out that JLR had a little bit of a hand in helping them with this car, because of course Lotuses, they never really like compete with other cars. They're just Lotuses. They're just little track toys. So the fact that they've finally made something that is like a car, I guess that doesn't really make sense. They've made something that's more than just a track toy. They may have had to kind of outsource some help. So let's take this Lotus Emira for a short test drive. Talk about what it's been like to live with on a daily basis. I will tell you, when the shifter is cold, sometimes it takes a second for it to go into gear. Let's turn our vent down. But when you do get it into gear, it is a very nice feeling. We'll start out here in tour mode. That is our comfort mode, our normal mode, whatever you want to call it. But I'll tell you, I really prefer driving this in sport. Hear the nice noises from that Edelbrock supercharger. And when you go into sport, it really opens things up. Yeah. Pretty instantaneous throttle response. The pedal box, very close together. Clutch, brake, and accelerator are all about 1 millimeter apart. Of course, this is for your spirited driving, to be able to heel toe, rev match, do everything yourself in this car, because we have no automated rev matching system. You got to do everything yourself in here, which I kind of like. Makes you feel more connected with this thing. We have a hydraulic power steering, no electronic assist in this car, and that is nice. But you know what they've done? They've made it just about perfect in the weight department. I don't feel like I'm struggling to steer this car, and that is really nice, because some of these cars, even the Ford Mustang, you get in it, and it's a chore steering it around, and this one is just weighted so nicely that you don't feel like that. They've kind of got that perfect balance between lightness and heaviness, so I appreciate that they've invested some time here into the steering feel on the Emira. And speaking of the steering wheel, like I said earlier, you have an option to go Alcantara, but this one is leather. And we have a few buttons here on the left for our cruise control and on the right for our volume controls as well as track selection. You can shift this car pretty fast. The only gear change that you can't really bang off is the 1-2 change, but that is pretty typical of any car. You guys see my reflection in the Lotus badge on the steering wheel? Okay, so before we hop on the highway and get into our spirited driving section, let's take a second to talk about what this thing has been like to daily drive. Well, it's quite nice, and this is the first Lotus, I think, that is actually a truly livable car. You get in this thing and you're really not inconvenienced or annoyed by anything, unless your girlfriend brings a Stanley water bottle and you have a manual transmission equipped car. It is quite nice. The infotainment works exactly as it should. Even just getting in and out of the car is not too much of a chore. Ergonomically, it's quite nice. The seats are very comfortable. Like I said, it's not a chore to steer the car. And overall, it's easy to drive. Clutch and shifter action feels very natural. Hold on. Okay. So we do have a bit of a whistle from the left mirror, which is kind of strange. I hope that's only on this car and not all Emiras. You guys hear that? It gets worse the faster you go. So there's that. So we have a couple of different suspension choices with this car. You can have Lotus set it up for sport. You can have them set it up for touring from the factory. This car has the sport suspension set up, and I'm happy to report, even in sport form, it's quite nice. I mean, this car overall is kind of soft, and it's not as hardcore as I was expecting, and I do appreciate that. And I think that's what Lotus was going for. They were going for more of a daily drivable package here with the Emira, and it shows. So don't be scared of speccing the sport suspension onto your Emira if you're considering sport versus touring. Of course, I haven't driven the touring suspension car. This is the only Emira I've driven, but we'll probably end up getting another Emira at some point, and hopefully we'll be able to test that. So the Emira is also available, I don't think I mentioned this in the beginning, with an AMG 4-cylinder turbo and 8-speed DCT. So that sounds like a very compelling powertrain configuration for this car. Traditionally, I've got to say, I love the supercharged V6 with the 6-speed manual, but if you're looking to try something new, maybe go for the AMG powered car. I mean, it sounds like it would be quite nice. So NVH, road intrusion, not bad, and I was expecting wind intrusion to be a little bit better in this car, even apart from the whistle from our left side rearview mirror. It's a little bit noisy in here. Love that you can hear that supercharger. Yeah, I wonder if maybe Lotus did that on purpose so all the silly journalists and YouTubers don't speed in their cars. Yeah, that's obnoxious. 400 horsepower in this car feels about adequate. It's plenty quick. I'm not longing for more power. Turn in is just beautiful. Look at this. These are on cold tires too. Let's feel those brakes. Ooh, yeah. So the limiter sneaks up on you. As you can see, I tapped it a little bit there in my 2-3 change, and it's not a rev limiter that bounces. It's simply a fuel cutoff, so it kind of kicks you in the back. Let's try out track mode. Track mode changes our cluster. Oh, apologies to headphone users. And you can really rev this thing out. Your instinct tells you to shift at about 6,200 RPM, but you can actually rev it out to about 68. Plenty of mid-range torque as well, which I think is kind of why you don't feel like you have to rev it out as far as you need. I mean, at 3,000 RPM, I've got a ton of torque here. This car then kind of sits as a viable option among some of our other mid-engine sports cars here in 2024. So I could see you cross-shopping this against a Porsche Cayman, and I honestly kind of get Cayman vibes driving this car. To be honest, when I got in this, I was shocked how much it reminded me of my 987 Cayman S, but more so it reminds me of a 718 GTS 4-liter. I would say that that's kind of the closest Cayman. And that's a big compliment because, you know, Porsche's been making sports cars for, well, I guess maybe they've been, well, no, Porsche's been making sports cars for longer than Lotus, but Lotus has been around for a while too, but Porsches have always been more daily drivable and livable than Lotuses, so the fact that this reminds me of a Cayman is a good thing. I do think 100 grand may be a bit of a stretch for this car. I'd be a little bit more comfortable if it were around 80 to 85 grand. I think that'd be more fair, but you also got to remember that in today's society, everything is more expensive than it should be, and everything like this is 100 grand. So this is another one of those videos where I have to get a little bit sad. This is Lotus's last internal combustion engine car. The Emira will be the end of an era for Lotus, and it'll cease production in 2028, as that is the year that they have committed to going full electric. The TheTopher and I just drove the Electra, whatever the SUV thing is called, with 900 horsepower. And while that was very cool, of course, it's just hard to picture that as a Lotus, because Lotus, they've always been driver's cars. They've always been purist cars. And they're kind of getting away from that now. And the Emira here is the last hurrah. And it's kind of a transitionary car with some of these luxury characteristics. And, well, it is what it is. They've got to do what they got to do to stay alive in today's market. But it is certainly sad. We've got 4 years with this Emira, and then that'll be it. So 2024 to 2028, get one while you can. I guess that's 5 model years, isn't it? Still. get one while you can, and it is truly a fantastic thing. I have enjoyed my couple of days with this car, and I wish I could spend more with it. I would buy one of these, I would own one of these. I think I'd go, honestly, for just about this exact spec. The only thing I'd do differently is I would get a British Racing Green. They don't call it British Racing Green, but I'd get the dark green exterior, and I think that would do it for me. All right, well, a bit of a shorter video today. Waiting on the TOPher to pull in here in the GR Corolla so we can swap back for the week. But thank you all so much for watching. That switches your mode, I see. It's cool because we have the little guy with the helmet here for our climate control. I always love when manufacturers do that. Man, I've got it hot in here today. Jeez. I'll turn that back on. Okay, anyways, I guess that's it. Let's park. Let's hop out, give you guys one last look here. This wonderful little sports car. Also, as far as the KEF sound system goes, I'm a pretty big fan of it so far. With the little bit of listening that I've done to it, I think that there's only so much you can really do with the greenhouse and the square footage of a sports car like this, and Maserati showed a good example with their Sonus Faber and the MC20. Granted, that is a $300,000 to $400,000 car. This is only $100,000, so not a great comparison, but they've done a pretty good job tuning this KEF system. It's got good power. You can really feel the subwoofers, and everything kind of comes together nicely here. So I really don't have any true complaints about this car. I wish it was a little bit cheaper, and they got to get that whistle figured out here on this car on the left-hand side. But otherwise, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. It's striking. Design-wise, they've absolutely nailed it. Material-wise inside, they've absolutely nailed it. Clutch shifter feel, steering feel, throttle response, everything is just fantastic. And I'm sure I've left some things out. So if you have any questions for me, I'll do my best to answer them. I've spent about 2 days with this car, so feel free to ask questions in the comment section, but that will just about wrap it up for us today. So thank you guys all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.
This the new one?
Yes, new Lotus.
Man, every time I see it, dude, every look, I'm like, yo, dog, you done got the new Lotus now, too?
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
It's blue, it's cold, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I just got done doing my video on it, so that's why I got a camera on my face.
I was like, I saw you with the MC.
Yep.
Now I see you with the Lotus.
Yep. Yeah, it's a great car, and it's like a quarter of the price of the MC20.
Yeah,
so it's 100.
100? Not bad.
Yep. And you can get manual, you can get automatic, you can get a 4-cylinder, you can get a V6. It's pretty configured. This is a supercharged V6 with a manual.
With the manual?
Yep.
Look good. I figured
it does look great.
It looked like the new Lotus.
Yeah, it looks great. It's $100,000, but it looks like a $300,000 car. Like, it's striking. What?
The first MPs, the first McLaren.
Oh, the
MP4
12C. Yep.
That reminds me of the 12C.
Yeah, great to see you again.
Listen, man, have a good one.
I'll see you soon. All right, guys, that'll be it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.